This episode is sponsored by Squarespace. I used Squarespace to build both Basics with Babish and BingingWithBabish.com. On the sites, you'll find recipes, equipment lists, other news, and updates. All beautifully designed, if I do say so myself. Get 10% off your first Squarespace order by visiting squarespace.com/babish.
Hello there, welcome back to another episode of Arcade with Alvin. We're going to be making something from one of the past few years' most anticipated game, The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. A lot of new game mechanics have been introduced in this edition of Zelda, and one of the most interesting ones seems to be item fusion, which means while you shoot your arrows at the enemies, you can now fuse things to it. One of them which seems to be just meat. But first, we must handle the issue of Link's bow. We were able to get our hands on a pretty legit looking recurve bow from a disguised merchant. He didn't really speak much, just mumbled a few sounds and took all of our rupees, which is probably why this bow came unstrung. I must now confer back to the instruction manual that came with this bow. There does not seem to be a lot of English on it either, just some diagrams of some people in weird positions trying to hook this loop around the bow. Okay, this seems to be not working. Clearly something is wrong. What about you, Steve, my trusty companion? What do you think? Steve is also stumped. Upon further inspections, it looks like this bow has been in the wrong configuration the whole time. The bow needs to bend all the way backwards, and after exerting about 60 to 100 pounds of force to bend the bow backwards and scared it'll snap and destroy our faces at any moment, we have finally successfully looped the string around one side of the bow. To make the meat arrows, we are going to take one arrow and put it in the meat. The arrow has now joined forces with the meat. The meat has now disassociated from the arrow. We're going to have to refuse this one more time. Here I have some rock salt that I have forged in my little pouch. We're going to dust the side of this and realize that it is actually not covering much surface area at all. So this meat arrow now goes back on the table. We are going to salt heavily both sides of this meat. Now that our meat arrow is nicely seasoned, we now go outside to hunt. I'm looking for some moblins to go and scare with this meat arrow. Ooh. Look who we have here, a wild moblin. He has now been baited by my meat arrow. Success. That means I can go behind him and give him a good old sneak strike. Hiya! Ah, look who we have here, another unsuspecting target. This time I'm using a raw bird drumstick on an arrow. Here we go for the shot. Hey, not even close, baby. Now it's time for my spin move. It is now time to reconsider what a more practical meat arrow might be. How about a meat skewer? The only difference between a skewer and an arrow is your decision to shoot them. So I'm cubing up one chuck steak that we just got at the store, at the merchant. I also have from my inventory some Hylian mushrooms that I have foraged in the wild by pressing A. Now the game accurate version of the skewer is assembled by one mushroom, followed by a pretty large chunk of the steak, followed by one other mushroom. But just for practicality purposes, we are going to make more evenly spaced mushroom and meat skewers with mushrooms and chunks of chuck steak alternating. Now that we have an inventory of 3 arrows, I'm going to give these a little rub from my oil jar, just so that it has enough room to provide surface area for seasoning. Again, taking salt from my salt pouch. I'm the kind of person that likes to pick up everything I come by, no matter how full my inventory may be, and that is now coming in handy. With our skewers ready, we are now going to go outside to hunt some more. Here we have our previous 2 targets completely incapacitated. Good job, Link. Let's see what else we got. It seems like Steve has fallen asleep at the wheel. He must be tired from pressing record. Steve is happily taking the bait, unnoticing the fact that I am now dual wielding and will hit Steve with my strongest move, plunging attack. Now that my meat arrows have done their job successfully, it is now time to cook them over an open flame. Thank you, Andrew, for setting up this amazing fire, and thank you, Kendall, for helping me put this steel grate right on top. How would Link actually cook this in the game? Well, if he were lore accurate, he would probably actually fire each and every meat arrow onto the fire itself. So here I am, just letting the meat fell on the thing. I put the arrow back. Let's shoot the chicken. Okay, pretty good. And the skewer. Perfect. Bullseye. An arrow can also serve as a very good cooking utensil as long as it is flameproof, which these arrows are certainly not. Just like in the game, Link's cooking skills are not the best, so I'm going to try and figure out how to cook this thing. Ah yes, my skewer is now on fire and has transformed into a flaming mushroom and meat skewer, which is probably a little bit stronger than the non-flaming version. In order to cook these over the open flame, I'm eyeing where the hot spots are and giving the thicker cuts of meat more heat while giving the thinner cuts of meat some of the cooler sides of the grill, flipping just to make sure that all sides are evenly cooked. I've learned that when cooking on an open flame, the flame is so hot that you might turn it over and see and think that whatever piece of meat that you're cooking is fully cooked through. But sometimes that is not the case, as the inside is raw, but the outside is really well cooked. So I found it pretty important to keep rotating and checking to see if your meat is cooked all the way. A blood moon has appeared, and there are now moblins swarming around me. I must defend my meat. Ha! 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 Yeah! Woohoo! With a makeshift weapon I have created with a stick and a rock, I am now victorious. Back to managing the heat and grilling of all the meat arrows I have currently on the flame. The crust is looking pretty good on the larger meat arrow or our ribeye steak, and the skin is looking quite good on our chicken. Let's just see how it looks. Yep, that is a nice sear that we have on the steak, and based off of this alone, it might be telling that the steak is done, but touching it with tongs tells me that this is still quite rare or even raw on the inside. So I'm gonna let this hang out for a bit and put it back on the grill just to keep cooking all the way through. Need to make sure that all the other skewers are cooking evenly. Some of the little ones are cooking faster than the bigger ones, so I'm moving the bigger one to the hotter side. Oh, the durability on my skewer is not very high and it has now broke. After some testing, some moving around and managing the flame and trying to not dodge the smoke because it always seems to follow you, we have a beautifully cooked meat and mushroom skewer, as well as a cooked bird drumstick. The thicker steak is taking some time, so I'm searing the fat on the edges and making sure that this thicker piece of meat is in fact actually fully cooked through. It would be really sad if it was just raw in the center, even though technically that is what Link eats sometimes. Okay, now that all of our meat arrows and skewers have been fully cooked, it is now time to take them off the grill and go inside and restore all the hearts I lost from fighting that one moblin. Here we have all of our cooked meat skewers. We have the mushroom meat skewers, we have the cooked prime meat, and we have our cooked bird drumstick. How does it taste? Pretty good. Salt, mushrooms, and beef. Can't really go wrong here. I'm gonna give this one a lot of hearts. Honestly, Link is eating pretty good, but I think these do need a little bit more rock salt seasoning. A lot of salt can fall off during the grilling process, so I like to add a little bit of extra salt at the end. Yes, this one, a lot of hearts. And a buff. Oh look, my friend Andrew has now come to take some hearts as well. Oh, he seems to be enjoying the cooked meat arrow. I wonder if he actually tastes the arrow. After realizing I forgot to salt the actual bird drumstick, I am now salting it and just giving it a taste. And there's something about cooking meat over an open flame that you can't really get with the stove. Whether it's the smoke, whether it's the fact that it's just super high heat. How about this giant prime meat steak that we made? A cooked ribeye, flame grilled with just a little bit of salt. An arrow cooked to a good doneness, gives this a little bit of taste. This is the kind of meat you eat in a video game, and it gives you not just a buff but permanent stat boosts. And the best part is it does not taste like arrow one bit. Now that I've restored all of my HP, it is now time to go commit more atrocities and war crimes on those Koroks.
Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's episode. They've been a great partner in supporting the Babish culinary universe and bringing my websites to life. From websites to online stores to domains and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform for you to build your online presence. They also have SEO tools so that your site is getting found and searched by more people more often. If you want to try it for yourself, you can start your free trial today by visiting squarespace.com/babish to get 10% off your first purchase.
Ba 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 ba.